The other week, this album came up on my feed as getting released, and I listened to the music and it was just like I was working on it yesterday. But then I actually realized I worked on this track back in 2020 in February. I worked on the album back in February 2020. And it's so beautiful. I wanted to, from scratch, remaster one of the songs off it, share that process with you, because the music is so beautiful. It is so intricate and detailed, and the things we're going to uncover as we do this, I think is just going to be amazing to hear where we come to. And in saying that, if you're really passionate about mastering like me, try my 5-day mastering sprint. It has all the detail, all the little tidbits, techniques, and juicy stuff to really help accelerate your mastering work. It's for free. It's down in the link below. Now let's jump into this beautiful, amazing track by Stephen Reeds. It's just gorgeous. Click at the end. Click plus noise. Woo! All right, so a bit to unpack there. Do we go into the creative or the technical? I don't know if we're going to have to do boring stuff first, which is I got a bit of noise that comes in and out. There's a ringing that comes in and out. There's some noise in this quiet section. There's some noise on the outro, and there's a click at the end. Let's try and nip this in the butt, because if we nip it in the bud early, it's just going to make our life so much easier down the track. Let's just be really cheeky with this and see if we can put this in our plugin chain. Typically, I'd render this in, but for the sake of you actually hearing the process of doing this, I think we'll put it on here. So let's put that there. It's cool. Okay, cool. That's been learnt. Now let's play that. When I'm doing this, I'm listening to the low end because you don't want to lose the body in the rim click. So I'm just going to reduce the amount of reduction. And what we'll do is, typically what I would do here is I'd commit a file and then I'd blend the files in playlist mode. But because I want you guys to be able to hear how I dial this in, and I can't do that in the audio suite, we're just going to leave it as an insert for the meantime. So bring that down to 0. Oops, wrong way. Let's go from here. Start there. Go there, bring that down. Okay, let's see how natural that change sounds. That's fucking unnatural. Way too quick. Let's go there. Much longer we're going to need to go. Let's try that. I think 23, we lose too much of the room noise, so I'm just going to bring that back that threshold off a bit. That's good, that's good. Now let's put in bypass. About there is where I'd say I want it to come back, like come back off, so to speak, because I don't need it anymore in those heavy sections. That's good. that buzz sits just a bit. Uh, 23 is better than 18. Just don't want too much of that guitar. Alright, so this is before. Now, obviously, I would put this in best mode and render this offline, but for the sake of this video, we can just leave it as a plugin instance, so to speak. And then there's noise at the very end as well, which I want to alleviate. Oh, there we go. That little click there. Piss off click. This one, I'm not going to put one single plugin instance for the D-click. We're just going to... Where are we? Where's D-click? D-click. You can just D-click that, buddy. You know you can. Perfect. Before is at the top. After. So no more click there. We've got the D noise. There's this little ringing which happens in the top end, which I'm curious if I can... Advanced settings? Nope. No. What I'm going to have to do is... That ringing frequency, is it really a bother? It's so soft. It is so soft. Look, what we're going to do is we'll add 2 notches, one there and one to the other one. Beautiful. So I got that. All right. So we've got the noise done, the ringing dealt with, the click at the end. Good. Now let's get into the juice of it, the actual, like, listening to the musicality of this. I just had to do the housekeeping, so to speak. Now to the juice. Something I heard, which is really interesting, and I made a note of it here. How do the low mids affect the brass tone? Because I feel like that like arpeggiating bass line, the do 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 do, that bass line in like that low mid is really forward and making some of the kick drum feel weak, some of the nuance and the details in the upper mids feel weak, but the horn tone is really warm. And getting rid of that, I don't know how it's going to affect the horn tone, if it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. So let's get to EQing. Let's get a feel for where we can take this. And when you hear that, that bass in that low mid, there's also a lot of transient in the kick drum as well. So it's like if you duck that, you're going to lose some of that transient information. So this is where it's like it gets really finicky to dial something in that embellishes what's there, because it's actually a really good mix to begin with. what I'm going to do is, let's have another listen. I want to maybe get the fundamental of the kick out a little bit to see how much transient energy that can bring to the overall picture. Remember, we're mastering, look at the overall picture. If we can bring a bit of transient energy by lifting the low end of the kick up and out a little bit, making it bloom a little bit, then maybe we have a little bit more liberty to play with that low mid without affecting the transient of the kick. We're still going to be conscious of the tone of the horns. That's a whole other thing. But let's start with the kick and then we'll decide what to do with the low mids. Just going to bring the gain structure down a little bit. I can't. What? No. I just changed the output down to -4. The reason why I realized I can't bring that gain clip down, that clip gain down, is because it's pinned to all the thresholds of this spectral denoiser, which I typically don't have the issue of because I do it as a separate process. But because it's in there, I can't gain that clip down without having to change all that automation. So we'll just gain the output down of this so we don't go over 0 for the sake of you being able to hear these changes in post on a fixed point system. Okay, let's look at those trumpet runs, because what we can actually, I've narrowed the cue a little bit because I think we avoid some of those harmonics in the trumpet by doing that. So there's a bit of separation on that passage with the horns. Below 500 hertz, there's really no harmonics or there's no fundamental of those horns in those registers. It's just synth there or keys there. So if we can keep this Q value down below 4500, I think we'll be good. So we're going to bring that down -2, -1.5. Let's be a bit conservative with this. Okay, I'll copy that to a B version, and what we'll do is we'll level match this verse on and off. Let's go here. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to get a nice sustained bit of trumpet. I like using sustained bits of trumpet, especially where the tonality or the velocity of the air going through the instrument changes, because the timbre changes throughout the one note. Take a listen to this. There's a negative a half a decibel difference. The one with the cut of 1.5 dB at 200 hertz, I boosted by half a decibel to level match it to the original, and it actually opens up the trumpet tone in a nice way. It's not making it bright and harsh, and it's helping alleviate that bass section that I feel is a bit too forward. But in the same respect, it actually sounds really good. I actually think this is a really good balance. I was actually stressed that was going to kill the tone of the trumpet. So just take a listen again. I'll loop this. That, to my ears, is phenomenal. That's actually a really nice, subtle move, which actually does quite a lot to the trumpets, which I'm happy with. Now, overall, let's just have another listen. Actually, I might go to this softer section, and then we'll transition into this larger one here. I think with, like, overall, this change to at least the overall signal is really solid. It's tempting to make everything brighter, because often our ears are more pleased by the perception of something that's brighter, more open, but I don't think that's where the tone of this track goes. Listening to the side signal, there's a lot of ambience, small detail, texture, some of the panned instruments head out wide. So I'm very tempted to just put another instance of Pro Q4, because I don't necessarily want to have any utility of running this in linear phase, but when I run mid-side matrices, I always have them in linear phase, because I want to just open up the sides. I just want to have a listen and just try and open up something nicely there. I want to get away from where the drums are. Let's go. Let everything go in there. Let's go there. Beautiful. That's really nice. That's really nice. Compression wise, been doing something really interesting with much more contemporary music than this, in terms of like pop, dance, hip hop tracks, is where I'll compress into the clipper, but what I'll do is I'll set my clipper and then use the compressor to control the transients that hit the clipper so it's more consistently clipping. Just something I've been doing. And I'm curious if material like this can take to something like that. I really want to avoid clipping at all costs on this if I can, because I think there are other processes which can help me get this across the line in a nice musical way. So, but just for the sake of setting up a compressor, maybe it might do its duty. So let's see where we get the clipping, and then we'll add Pro C2 before it. Actually, I'm not going to use Pro C2. I'm going to use, I think Dyne 1 is going to be a little bit nicer because the snares are really snappy. Now, if I just come down on that with a normal, compressor, duck all the snares aren't going to pop like they are. Part of that pop is part of that movement, that motive in those weird, like, syncopations. When that snare hits, you lock back in with the music. If we clamp down on that with the compressor really hard, we're not going to get that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use some parallel compression. My aim here is, overall, I want a compressed signal, but then to control which portions or which bands of the signal thicken up as opposed to open, or make it more pop open, so to speak. Actually, I don't like that preset for this. This tends to be a very snappy sort of sound, whereas Bobcat's is a much more warmer, glued sound. Let's have a listen and see where we take it, I guess. My aim is to have each band compressing about 12 decibels, give or take. let's level match this process here. Let's go before and after. I'm going to leave the clipper on. I think so. Beautiful. I like that. Actually, let's see how far away we've gotten from the original. That's going to be a bit more telling of if we're in the right direction right now. Okay, 4 decibel difference. Let's bring that down. Oops, no, wrong way. That has to come down 4 dB. Let's go. Oh, that sounds awesome. All right, I'm actually really happy with that. Let's have a listen. Let's do this at the intro. Okay, let's do a few bars on and off now. That's a nice open tone where there's lots of transients there. I want to see how that compares before and after. Let's get that trumpet tone. The snare snaps just that little bit more. That's actually quite a nice movement. Now, what are our peak levels at? That's actually pretty interesting to know. And for the other one. Okay, and we've bought about 2 decibels of headroom, which is nice. Vin 11. Let's get the vintage limiter on. Don't need is 6 because I know that's how much ceiling I've got. CG2. CG2, this density, whenever I want something to snap at the end of a chain, a little bit of this goes a long way. This has made all the transients, and I've showed this before on the CG2 video, just made all the transients pop the hell out of the speaker. Like, it just comes straight out glaring. It's beautiful. Sustain. I want to hear that trumpet tone against the before. That start of it where it's a bit more aggression. We'll just level match that quickly. That's nice. Go before. Oh, beautiful. Listen to this. Do the same there. Beautiful. If we listen to this soft section, probably the magic in this is I hope I picked this up on the original. If I didn't, shame on me 5 years ago, but that noise reduction was just great. Listen to this before and after. Magical. But so just going through some of my moves here. This, very good, worked super well, that 1.5 dB dip at 200 Hertz. This 32 Hertz bump, I might live without, would be able to live without. These at 2 at the top was just a really lazy way of getting rid of that sort of like ringing frequency from a particular take that was happening at the top there. You could live or live without that as well, because it's not really going to translate all that badly for other people. They're not going to hear up at 19 kilohertz, and it's not that loud either. This, on the side signal of the drums, can live with or without it. So probably the only EQ move that was significant was this negative 1.5 dB tuck. This parallel compression, so maybe people want me to revisit how I set this up. I aim for the compression of each band to be at about negative 12 decibels of gain reduction. Then I use each of these sliders as a sort of thickness balance. How much thickness do I want in each band? I wanted quite a bit of thickness everywhere, except the mid-range, because in this mid-range is right where the body of that click was, and the snare was, and that was taking up quite a bit of headroom. And I didn't want to compress that down, but I didn't want to embellish it either. So I embellished everything else around it to sort of fill up the space. So relatively, that mid-range wasn't as pokey relative to that. The clipper was in. Did I need it? Probably not. I probably could have avoided using that. The vintage limiter has a really nice curve into the ceiling, so that was cool to use that. This was magical. You know what's funny? This density knob is super powerful, but I'm not using it as much as most people might think about, even though I rave about it. This really helped the drums pop out in a nice way, but I'm not using it. Like, we're on Tuesday now, I've done about 8 sessions for the week, and I've not yet used this on a session this week, although I did use it on sessions last week. So it's sort of a case-by-case basis when I'm using that density knob, but it is really good. And then the maximizer, I use the balance mode because I like the way it treats the low end a bit better. Anyway, with that, what can you take from this? Nothing. This was just a lot of fun. And if you really like mastering, there's a 5-day mastering sprint down below. Go check it out. Great track as well. Actually, it's a great album. Go check out the whole album. I mastered this 5 years ago, mind you. So some of the things I did here, I might not have picked out on the actual album release version, but it was really cool to just get in a groove and master for you guys, because I love this stuff, and it was just fun to find it and get permission from the artist, and that's what this is all about. Just having fun and loving what we do. So with that, until next time, take care.